My name is Emily, and I have always considered myself a dedicated wife and nurturing mother. However, one beautiful morning, while tending to our garden for a party, something unexpected happened. An unforeseen meeting revived long-suppressed yearnings within me, irrevocably changing the trajectory of my existence. The entire sequence commenced with a modest act of benevolence, a gesture that rekindled a flame I believed had long been snuffed out while I positioned myself atop an unstable ladder, adorning the patio with shimmering lights. The sun illuminated the lawn with a golden tint, contrasting sharply with the turmoil inside me. I was organizing my daughter Lauren's birthday celebration. My husband, Mason, a distinguished architect, frequently overshadowed a task I typically undertook with him due to his professional commitments, making his presence a mere echo in the symphony of our family life. Despite this precariousness, I persisted in my endeavors, accustomed to the minor inconveniences of a life lived according to my own preferences. A voice unexpectedly stunned me, imparting a profound depth that sent a shudder down my spine. "Madam Hayes, do you require assistance?" I nearly lost my equilibrium and found myself staring into the eyes of Jackson, the son of my closest friend Eleanor. "Thank you, Jackson," I responded. As I carefully made my way down the ladder, he stepped forward to steady our hands. A brief brush, a touch that kindled a spark within me. The spark ignited long-suppressed aspirations within me. Upon my arrival, I observed that Jackson needed assistance. His eyes shimmer with a whimsical allure. It both fascinated and disturbed me. I expressed my gratitude by stating that it was very kind of you. I guided him to the garden, where the final decorations awaited our attention as we collaborated. His assured motions and innate grace enthralled me, and every unintentional contact accelerated my heartbeat. With an illicit thrill, "How is college progressing?" questioned, striving to adopt a nonchalant demeanor. However, my voice revealed a trace of emerging interest. "I sensed that things are progressing positively," Mrs. Hayes responded, her hands skillfully arranging a tablecloth, balancing academics and social engagements. "However, it is pleasant to return home. Everything appears more tranquil here." In contrast to the vibrant campus, I chuckled with a quiver in my voice. "I can envision the places where everyone has felt your absence." "Lauren discusses you frequently," he responded with a disarming smile, full of optimism for positive outcomes. Temporarily alleviating the tension that existed between us, solely the finest. I informed him that our eyes met for a moment that felt eternal. At that moment, I recognized that a mere touch may revive long-buried desires as the afternoon progressed. Shadows elongated across the lawn as guests commenced their arrival, populating the garden with a cacophony of laughter and dialogue. However, the spark that had ignited between Jackson and me persisted, an unseen thread linking us amid the throng of attendees, drawing my gaze to Jackson. His charismatic presence exuded warmth and humor as he presided over the drinks table, captivating his audience with every word, his contagious laughter resonating across the garden during our encounter. He halted mid-sentence, a mischievous smile illuminating his face as he presented me with Mrs. Hayes. He addressed me with his voice. A tender touch. I preserved the final glass of Lauren's. "I poured my preferred beverage for your appreciation, Jackson," I responded, our fingers grazing as I accepted the drink. "A familiar spark ignites within me. I believe I truly require this." I took a sip, attempting to conceal the flush that rose to my cheeks, uncomfortably conscious of the inquisitive stares from neighboring Omen. We gravitated towards a more quiet area of the garden, seeking solace from the intrusive gazes and raucous discussions. The subdued lighting and cozy ambience fostered a sanctuary for our hushed exchanges of laughs. "He weaves a fabric of connection that sets us apart from the other revelers, Emily." He commenced utilizing my initial name for the first occasion. His voice was "Thank you, Jackson," along my spine. "What is the experience of living in the suburbs?" "Living in the suburbs involves more than just social gatherings and home improvements." I laughed, astonished at the simplicity with which I engaged in conversation with him. "It is an exhilarating experience. Occasionally, selecting paint colors appears to be the most exhilarating choice." He chuckled, his eyes gleaming. He contemplated that remaining on my for a bit longer than necessary was exhilarating. His voice is deep and alluring. Perhaps you require further stimulation in your life prior to my response to Lauren's teasing voice that interrupted us. It appears you have captivated the most significant woman present. Jackson exclaimed, eliciting chuckles. Amidst the surrounding visitors, flushing, I offered a playful reply, Lauren, you are aware that I have always held a fondness for your family. My speech remained composed, while my heart raced with a blend of exhilaration and apprehension. Jackson cast me a fleeting, enigmatic glance, before turning to Lauren with a smile, only maintaining pleasant company, mother. The remainder of the evening was a haze of furtive looks and hushed dialogues with Jackson. Each exchange elicited a surge of exhilaration. A forbidden pleasure contended with his prior suggestion, the inquiry of requiring further excitement reverberated in my head, testing the limits of my meticulously curated existence as the gathering concluded and attendees started to leave. I experienced a surge of both emotions. The night had revealed more than I had anticipated when I woke up. Long-suppressed yearning emerged as I bid farewell to Jackson, our hands lingering. His touch conveyed an unspoken assurance of unresolved feelings. He muttered, "Good night, Emily." He intended his voice solely for my ears. "Good night, Jackson." I replied, my voice barely audible, a mixture of regret and excitement swirling inside me after the celebration. I endeavored to revert to the normalcy of my existence. However, memories of Jackson plagued me whenever I traversed the garden or saw the shimmering lights we had adorned together. The memory of our sexual encounters would resurface, sending a shiver down my back. I recognized this obsession as insanity. I was engaged in the work of Mason's son, with our discussions confined to the trivial aspects of our common existence. The routine that previously provided solace now felt stifling, akin to a golden cage that confined my restless spirit. One day, in search of respite from the stifling tedium, I resolved to visit my preferred cafe, a sanctuary of tranquility where I could immerse myself in an engaging book and a hot cup of coffee. Upon my entrance, the recognizable chime of the doorbell greeted me. Amidst the inviting scent of freshly brewed coffee and delectable pastries, I ordered my customary cappuccino and surveyed the room for a secluded area. Upon settling in, my gaze was drawn to a guy seated alone at a table by the window. His presence elicited a surge of unanticipated exhilaration as he scanned the little cafe for an available table when I suddenly encountered Jackson seated in a quiet corner, his laptop open before him. Amelia. What a delightful surprise. He radiated a lovely smile, brightening his face as he gestured for me to approach. My heart accelerated. A familiar warmth ascended my neck, tinting my cheeks with a rosy hue, as I approached his table, striving to maintain control, despite my pulse racing with apprehensive eagerness. Jackson, I was not anticipating your presence here. I admitted, taking a seat in the chair. Opposite him, my attention captivated by his enchanting smile, I indeed discover a shift in surroundings. He assists me in concentrating. He elucidated that shutting his laptop and directing his complete concentration towards it maintains novelty. He paused, his eyes glinting with malice, and inquired if I would like to join him for coffee. I already possess mine, but thank you. I responded by elevating my cup in recognition, and a serene silence enveloped us. Jackson disrupted the silence, leaning in slightly and lowering his voice, despite the tension from our first encounter appearing to be overlooked. In a secretive tone, Emily, you are not at all what I anticipated Mason's wife to be. His comments astonished me, causing my heart to miss a beat. Oh, I said, curiosity and a trace of dread intermingling in my voice. I am uncertain. He contemplated, his eyes fixed. Reflective, I anticipated the presence of someone. Although more guarded, your vivacity and charm compelled me to laugh. Flattered and somewhat embarrassed by his unanticipated compliment, I shall interpret it as a commendation, Jackson. I appreciate our discussion. Progressed smoothly, winding across a varied terrain of common interests, preferred literature, notable films, and individual ambitions. We explored subjects I had not conversed about with Mason in years. Jackson attentively considers my comments, demonstrating thoughtfulness and understanding, which makes me feel acknowledged and understood when our time together concludes. Jackson inclined nearer, his words a gentle whisper. I thoroughly appreciated our discussion. Emily, we might consider repeating the activity. At times, my heart raced at his proposal, my own enthusiasm astonishing me. Affirmative, I responded, answering his stare with newfound audacity. I would greatly appreciate that. We bid farewell in the cafe. As I approached my car, a need to see him again began to develop. I experienced an enduring desire that transcended logic and reason. Our unforeseen encounter had thrust us into perilous circumstances, and although withdrawal appeared to be the prudent choice, the temptation of the unknown and the potential for a connection that ignited a fire within me proved irresistible. Days elapsed in a tumultuous symphony. Excitement and shame contended within my emotions as recollections of Jackson, his words, and his touch pervaded my consciousness. His inquiry regarding the necessity for increased enthusiasm reverberates in my thoughts. Confronting the limitations of my meticulously organized life, one rainy day, I grappled with a frozen computer screen, my irritation escalating with each instant. Suddenly, I recalled that Jackson had noted his aptitude for resolving technological issues. Before I could engage in excessive contemplation, I dialed his number, the phone rang, and Jackson promptly responded in his voice. Inviting and hospitable. Greetings, Emily. How are you, Jackson? I apologize for the inconvenience. I attempted to retain my composure, however, I am experiencing some computer troubles that you indicated you might assist with. Could you assist with these matters? He responded promptly, stating he would come over upon the arrival. The atmosphere was charged with tension. Jackson positioned himself at the computer while I stood close by, observing his assured actions. Our shoulders inadvertently touched, eliciting a familiar sensation of warmth. I merely require adjustments to certain parameters. He whispered his concentration on the screen, and our faces were closer than I had expected. As I looked into his eyes, I recognized that rejecting the allure of our attraction would be an insurmountable challenge. Our lips connected in a tender yet ardent kiss, a spark lighting between us that rapidly intensified into a fervent manifestation of our repressed desires upon our separation. Gasping and heated, I could scarcely articulate. We cannot go with this, Jackson. Muttered, my voice quivering, acknowledging that I was addressing myself more than him. I am acquainted with Emily, I apologize, he responded. Averting my gaze, the burden of our misdeeds rests upon us. We completed the computer repair in quiet, the atmosphere laden with unexpressed feelings. Jackson promptly excused himself, leaving me in a tumult of perplexity and yearning as the door shut. I leaned against it, attempting to organize my thoughts. Each touch, each furtive glance, and each shared moment had imprinted an enduring brand on my psyche. I recognized that this was far from concluded. I apologize, he said, averting his glance. Mitigated the burden of our wrongdoing, palpable in the atmosphere. We completed the computer repairs in quiet, the tension between us was palpable, like static electricity. Jackson promptly excused himself, leaving me in a tumult of emotions as soon as the door clicked shut. I leaned against the door once it was closed behind him. My heart races as my mind revisits every furtive gaze, every caress, and every illicit kiss. Each recollection etched into my being serves as evidence of the unmistakable bond that had sparked between us. We saw that this was far from concluded. Weeks elapsed. Overwhelmed by an unrelenting longing, I endeavored to remove myself from Jackson to suppress the illicit urges that had emerged within me, but his visage pervaded my thoughts, his presence a persistent reverberation in the silent recesses of my mind. Mason, as usual, was engrossed in his work, his emotional detachment sharply contrasted with the lively bond one experienced with Jackson one morning while preparing breakfast. The persistent ringing of the phone disrupted silence. And welcoming, I considered the possibility of meeting to converse. I believe we must address the events that transpired. My emotions were disordered. However, I could not refute the allure of his presence. Very well, Jackson, I acquiesced, my tone revealing a trace of apprehension. let us convene at the Lavender. At the Garden Cafe, I selected my attire with excellent care. A sea green skirt that highlighted my curves and a fitted blouse that suggested the latent desires beneath. In the mirror, I observed a confident woman, nevertheless, within, a tempest of emotions surged. At the cafe, I discovered Jackson awaiting me, his eyes illuminating as I neared Alia. "Your beauty is remarkable," he expressed with clear adoration, causing my cheeks to flush with warmth that permeated my entire body. "Thank you, Jackson," I responded, taking my seat opposite him. "What did you wish to discuss?" He confessed his gaze while striving to preserve a sense of serenity regarding us. Unyielding, I am unable to cease contemplating. Acknowledging its impropriety, I must convey my emotions. His revelation precipitated a deluge. The feelings within me manifested as my heart raced against my ribs like a confined bird, reflecting our illicit aspirations, the perilous journey we were doing, and the necessity to discover a path ahead. I endeavored to preserve a distance, to adhere to my vestiges, yet every furtive gaze and each murmured phrase intensified my proximity to him as our dialogue approached its conclusion. Jackson proposed a walk, and we exited the cafe, exploring a lonely alley adorned with flowering trees, their aromatic blossoms permeating the air with a delightful fragrance. The romantic ambience intensified the tension between us, our unarticulated desires bubbling beneath the surface. He abruptly stopped and grabbed my hand, causing a chill to run down my spine. He admitted, his voice quivering, that he could no longer suppress this emotion. I looked into his eyes with emotion. Without contemplation, I drew him near and pressed my lips to his, reflecting the sincerity and depth of my own yearning. Engaging in a fervent, frantic kiss, he enveloped me in his arms, drawing me nearer, his touch kindling an intense flame. Our lips engaged in a symphony of forbidden desire, his breath warm across my skin. His presence invigorated my senses as the kiss intensified, causing me to become lost in the moment, the world dissolving around us as we yielded to the undeniable bond that united us. When we finally separated, breathless and flushed, our faces were mere inches apart, our breaths intertwining in the space between us. His eyes, a blend of passion and vulnerability, searched mine. "Emily," he whispered, his voice husky. "I can no longer conceal this emotion." The longer I desired to be with him, my thoughts accelerated, although one fact was evident, I also wished to be with him. At that moment, this kiss, this illicit connection, became tangible, and I could no longer refute the authenticity of my feelings. "I concur as well, Jackson," I said. With my heart brimming with a blend of elation and apprehension, we stood together and embraced, cherishing the moment, aware that choices awaited us, although in that time, the only significance was the irrefutable reality of our love. The days that followed passed by in a fog of emotion. In the context of stolen moments and clandestine rendezvous, we endeavored to maintain distance to fight the magnetic attraction that drew us together, yet our yearning proved insurmountable. Our resolve to disregard each encounter, whether fortuitous or intentional, only heightened our want for a connection that deepened with every exchanged gaze and hushed word while I prepared dinner one day. "Elia, let us convene at the park, beside the antiquated fountain. I require a conversation with you." Jackson's comment ignited my heart with a surge of eagerness, intermingled with a quiver of trepidation. His request was irresistible due to the overwhelming nature of his presence. I selected a light ivory dress that gracefully draped around my contours, elongating my silhouette. A nuanced reminder of my femininity as I neared the fountain. I observed Jackson awaiting my arrival. His customary light-hearted disposition was supplanted by a discernible stress. Our gazes intersected and a spark erupted between us, a tacit recognition of the illicit passions that lingered beneath the surface. "Emily." He initiated his vocalization. Quaking with emotion. "I cannot conceal this. I have been contemplating you incessantly, every minute of every day." I moved closer, our hands intertwining, his touch igniting a surge of electricity within me. "Jackson, I cannot cease thinking about you either," I admitted, my eyes brimming with tears. "However, we must exercise caution, this could jeopardize everything." He drew me nearer, capturing my lips in a fervent kiss that obliterated all notions of prudence and consequence. His hands encircled my waist, his touch eliciting shivers along my spine. The kiss was a tempest of desperation and yearning, my body responding to his caress with an intensity that was both exhilarating and daunting. "Emily, I desire to be with you, regardless of the circumstances," he murmured against my lips, his gaze probing mine with unwavering intensity. I realized that our emotions were unquestionable, possessing a power that surpassed reason and tradition. This kiss was not merely a transient moment of passion, it was a proclamation of our profound connection, a silent pledge to strive for a shared future. "I feel the same, Jackson," I said, my voice quivering with emotion. "Although we must exercise caution, we spent hours together that day." Ambling in the park, our dialogue resembled a nuanced interplay of hope and dread, love and obligation. Each phrase and glance reinforced my determination to be with him, notwithstanding the challenges confronting Emily. "I wish to retain you," admitted while we reclined on a bench under the canopy of a grand oak. "Let us convene clandestinely until we are able to do so openly. Determine a course of action." The prospect of never seeing him again was intolerable. I concurred emotionally. Divided between elation and trepidation, nevertheless, we must exercise prudence. Our lips reunited in a fervent kiss that solidified our clandestine agreement. His hands grazed my shoulders, transmitting waves of warmth throughout my body. I was unable to resist the allure of his yearning. My hands extend to intertwine with his. Our bodies intertwined in a crescendo of illicit desire, our clandestine encounters transformed into our refuge. Instances of intimacy inside the tumult of our existence. We convened in private areas of the park, our encounters characterized by a blend of ardor and gentleness. We valued every meeting, aware that our time together was invaluable and that our illicit love may be abruptly taken from us at any moment while we sat beneath a starry sky. Jackson grasped my hand, his eyes fixed on mine. "Emily," he commenced with a voice that was gentle yet imbued with emotion. "The previous few weeks have been the most joyous of my life, beyond my imagination. I might locate one who comprehended me. Who perceives me as you do, with such profound emotion. His words resonate with the feelings in my heart. I adore you." "Jackson," I murmured, my voice quavering. Amidst the fervor of my feelings, we spent the evening entwined in one another's embrace, our kisses attesting to the profundity of our bond. We recognized the impending obstacles, yet at that moment, the only thing of significance was the love we shared, the illicit passion that intensified with each clandestine meeting. Our clandestine gatherings emerged as a beacon of illumination amidst the obscurity of our existence, serving as a sanctuary from the banal world. It jeopardized our favor. Our love was illicit, a perilous engagement on the brink of impropriety. Nonetheless, it was within those clandestine moments of our secret rendezvous that we genuinely thrived, weeks transformed into an eternity with each day absent Jackson. Extending before me like an infinite desert, we maintained communication through messages. And refers to our discussions as a vital support. Amidst the overwhelming solitude that loomed over me, the need to see him and experience his touch intensified with each day. One afternoon, while Mason was at work and Lauren was at a friend's residence, a message from Jackson arrived, causing my heart to flutter. "Emily," it states, "I require your presence. May I visit?" I was aware of the risks and possible repercussions of the encounter, yet the allure of his presence was irresistible. I answered in the affirmative, my fingers trembling as I typed the single word, and excitement flooded my body. In anticipation of his arrival, I selected a brief khaki skirt and a fitted shirt, intentionally omitting undergarments, to amplify the fervor of our reunion. The knock on the door accelerated my heartbeat. I opened the door to discover Jackson on the threshold, his eyes ablaze with a yearning that reflected my own. We exchanged a wordless glance, a mutual recognition of the illicit desire that surged between us before he entered, shutting the door behind him. "Emily, you appear exquisite," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Jackson," I responded, my cheeks reddening. I had missed you with a warmth that enveloped my entire being. Regrettably, we remained stationary, our eyes fixed on one another. The atmosphere between us was charged with unexpressed longings, rendering the tension intolerable. Jackson bridged the gap between us, his lips meeting mine in an ardent kiss, his hands encircling my waist. Drawing me nearer, his touch kindles a fervor within me. "Emily, I can no longer delay." I mumbled against my lips, "Neither can I, Jackson," I confessed, my voice quivering. With a blend of exhilaration and apprehension, his hand glided down my waist. Softly guiding my skirt downward, I sensed his fingers brush against my skin, eliciting shivers of anticipation as the fabric clung to my feet, his eyes widening with want. "Emily, you are exceptionally gorgeous," he whispered, his voice laden with emotion, and kissed me again while caressing me with his hand. Sliding beneath my blouse, he gradually unbuttoned it. Our bodies squeezed together. His every touch elicited waves of ecstasy, while his lips descended my neck, igniting a trail of warmth. "Emily, I desire to be with you," whispered, his tone imbued with earnestness. "Indeed, I share that sentiment, Jackson," I responded. My emotions brimmed with a blend of elation and trepidation that we could no longer contain. Our bodies were entwined by his tender caress. Nonetheless, each caress was imbued with love and passion. I experienced each movement and breath, a symphony of illicit wants that engulfed us. Our motions intensified, and our passion heightened with each instant. His lips met mine once more. Each kiss serves as a testimonial to the profundity of our bond. We became immersed in the moment, the external world diminishing as we yielded to the captivating dance of our illicit romance. When we ultimately reached a halt, our bodies interlaced. Fatigued yet invigorated, a feeling of satisfaction enveloped us. We had transcended boundaries and entered unfamiliar realms, yet at that moment, it seemed as though we had discovered our path. At home, I looked into his eyes, which mirrored profound love and devotion. "I reciprocate your affection, Jackson," admitted, tears of joy obscuring my sight. We reclined intertwined, relishing the warmth of our connection. The stillness attested to the deep connection we had established at that instant. Our love appeared indomitable, a power capable of overcoming any barrier. We understood that we would strive for our happiness regardless of the consequences. Days evolved into weeks, and the initial exhilaration of our illicit journey soon succumbed to a pervasive shame. Was unable to escape the contemplation of Mason. Of the trust one had violated, he was my spouse, the progenitor of my offspring, and the cornerstone of our household. One evening, after Lauren had fallen asleep and Mason had arrived home late from work, I was filled with sorrow upon realizing that I had compromised everything for a transient moment of desire. I resolved to face reality. I made a modest meal and, with some reluctance, invited him to accompany me. He appeared astonished but was seated at the table, his brow creased with apprehension at the situation. "Emily?" he inquired, his voice tinged with concern. I inhaled deeply, and I inquired myself for the confession. "Mason, something has been amiss. We have developed over an extended period. Remote, and I sense that I have lost you. I committed a grave error. I was unfaithful to you." Jackson's eyes widened in astonishment. His face contorted in pain, he remained in startled stillness, absorbing the gravity of my words. "I understand that this is challenging to accept." Tears persistently flowed down my cheeks, and I am not seeking justifications. However, I wish for you to comprehend that it was a time of vulnerability. I continue to adore you, Mason, and I desire to preserve our family. "Emily, what prompted your actions?" he asked. His voice quivered with a blend of anguish and incredulity. "We became separated," I articulated, my voice laden with emotion. "I experienced feelings of loneliness and insignificance. Your preoccupation with work left us no time for one another. I erred, and I sincerely apologize." Mason exhaled, his eyes brimming. "I share in the culpability with sorrow. Emily, I did not provide you with sufficient resources. Attention, I believed that diligent labor was the optimal method to support our family, nevertheless, in the process, I inadvertently overlooked the most important aspects. Significant matter, you and I remained silent, the burden of our mutual regrets palpable in the atmosphere. Subsequently, Mason extended his arm across the table. Grasping my hands, I stated, "We need to discuss this, Emily." Mason asserted his voice with firmness. "Gentlemen, we must endeavor to rectify this issue. I do not wish to lose you, you jeopardize our family. Your significance to relief is profound." She enveloped me as I accepted. Tears cascading over my face. "I also do not wish to lose you. Mason, we must endeavor to enhance our friendship to rekindle the bond we once enjoyed." We opted to pursue professional assistance to address the intricacies of our damaged relationship, leading us to increase our expenditures. Time spent articulating our requirements. Our aspirations gradually rebuilt the foundation of our marriage after a particularly enlightening counseling session. Mason gazed at me with affection in his eyes. Emily stated that he comprehends the circumstances behind the incident and extends his forgiveness. We both erred, yet he is confident that we can surmount this challenge. I cherish you, and I desire our family to have happiness. Streams of delight and relief cascaded down my face. I returned your affection, Mason, clasping him firmly. We appreciate your understanding and the opportunity for a second chance. Despite the slow restoration of our connection, we both remained committed to the process of reconstruction. We reconnected, discovering happiness. In the fleeting moments of cherishing the invaluable gift of our collective existence, we ultimately recognized that our love and family were paramount. We had endured the tempest. We have emerged more resilient and united than before. This event has instilled in us the importance of valuing one another, engaging in open communication, and never taking our love for granted. We anticipated additional problems, yet we were prepared to confront them collectively. With renewed affection and steadfast support, several months elapsed, and our dedication to restoring our marriage yielded results. Each day was replete with new revelations, rekindled passion, and an enhanced appreciation for our connection. One evening, after a lengthy day, Mason returned home with a bouquet. Roses, one of my favorite flowers, represented a simple act that really touched my heart. He greeted me warmly with a smile and presented me with flowers. "Hello, Mason," I said, tears of delight welling in my eyes. "Thank you. This is quite pleasant." Reclined on the couch, I savored the tranquil intimacy of the moment as I leaned into him. His strong arms encircled me in a reassuring embrace. It was a moment of absolute fulfillment, a recognition that this was my long-standing desire, Emily. I am grateful that we successfully navigated our challenges and reunited. Mason admitted it with genuine earnestness. "I hold you and Lauren in the highest regard, and I will make sure we stay together." "Once more, I share the same sentiment," Mason responded, locking her gaze with his. "Over the past few months, I have expressed my affection for you and the importance of our family in my life, Mason. I pledge to consistently support you in all endeavors," as we embraced. Appreciating the warmth of our renewed bond, our love was challenged but has emerged fortified and more resilient. We were confident in our ability to confront any obstacle as long as we addressed it directly. The following day, we resolved to dedicate time to family bonding. We attended a picnic at the park. The location where I previously met Jackson now represented a significant signal of our renewed devotion to one another. Lauren was elated about the excursion, her laughter resonating throughout the park as we engaged in activities, gathered wildflowers, and relished the delectable feast. Mason had made preparations. Observing Mason and Lauren engage in laughter and play, I recognized that this epitomized genuine happiness, a fundamental delight revitalized through forgiveness and comprehension. As the evening concluded, we sat together on a blanket. Mason embraced me warmly as we observed the sunset illuminating the sky with vivid colors. He began speaking, sending a reassuring reminder of the love we had rekindled through me, Emily. Overwhelmed with gratitude, I wish to express my appreciation for all that we share. Lauren and I are the paramount priorities. In my life, I shall ensure that we never become estranged again. I feel the same way, Mason. I responded, my heart brimming with elation. We have endured considerable challenges. However, it has only fortified us, I am certain. We can confront any challenge as long as we do so collectively. We remained seated in an embrace. Observing the sunset, our hearts synchronized. This moment epitomized our rejuvenation, a new chapter in our existence. Embraced by love and optimism, we recognized that new obstacles loomed ahead, yet we were prepared to confront them collectively, offering mutual support and affection. This narrative centers on forgiveness, love, and familial strength. We recognized that even the bleakest situations could provide illumination if we were prepared to contend for what genuinely holds significance. Our family has risen from the ruins. Our family has become more robust and cohesive than ever before. Before, we were ready for any challenges life threw at us, confident that by uniting, we could overcome any obstacle.